Welcome back to my channel. Let's start. They say life is full of surprises, and sometimes those surprises come from the people you think you know best. My husband and I have been together for years, and like any couple, we've learned each other's habits, quirks, and hobbies, or so I thought. But recently, I discovered something that completely threw me off guard. My husband's unexpected love for something I do. It started out as something small, almost unnoticeable. But as time went on, it turned into something much bigger, and honestly, it changed the way I see our relationship. Today, I'm going to share the full story with you, the ups, the downs, the awkward moments, and everything in between. So, sit back, grab a cup of tea, and let's dive into this unexpected twist in our lives. It all started about 6 months ago. To give you a little context, I've always been the kind of person who loves trying new things. Whether it's cooking, painting, gardening, or even dabbling in pottery, I find joy in exploring hobbies. My husband, on the other hand, has always been more of a spectator. He enjoys watching sports, scrolling through his phone, or relaxing on the couch after a long day. And I was perfectly okay with that. Until one day, something changed. I remember the exact moment it all began. I was in the kitchen, preparing a new recipe I'd found online. Cooking has always been my escape, my therapy. There's something so satisfying about chopping vegetables, experimenting with spices, and creating something from scratch. That day, I was making a dish I'd never tried before, an intricate pasta recipe that involved homemade dough and a lot of patience. As I rolled out the dough, I noticed my husband standing in the doorway. At first, I thought he was just passing by. But then he stayed. He leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, and just watched me. It felt a little odd, but I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was hungry or bored, I thought. When I finally looked up and asked him what he was doing, he simply said, "I like watching you." I laughed and joked that he must really be hungry, but he shook his head. "No, it's not just the food," he said. "It's the way you do it. You're so focused, so peaceful." I didn't know what to say. I mean, who gets complimented on their cooking process, right? But the way he said it made me pause. He wasn't just making small talk. He genuinely seemed fascinated. After that day, I noticed him watching me more often. Every time I cooked, he'd find a reason to be nearby. Sometimes he'd offer to help, but mostly he'd just sit there, observing. It was as if my cooking had become his favorite show. And honestly, it made me a little self-conscious at first. I mean, cooking is messy. There's flour everywhere, dishes piling up, and the occasional recipe disaster. But none of that seemed to bother him. Then came the painting incident. I had decided to revisit an old hobby of mine, painting. It had been years since I picked up a brush, but I felt inspired that day. I set up my easel in the corner of the living room, put on some calming music, and started to paint. I was in my zone, completely absorbed in the process, when I felt a pair of eyes on me. Sure enough, there he was, sitting on the couch, watching me with the same fascination he had in the kitchen. At first, I found it a little annoying. Painting was supposed to be my private time, my chance to unwind. But when I looked at him, he wasn't just watching, he was admiring. "You're really talented," he said. I laughed and told him I wasn't. My painting was far from a masterpiece, but he didn't seem to care about the end result. He was more interested in the process, the way I mixed colors and made brush strokes. One evening, I finally asked him about it. "Why do you like watching me so much?" I asked, half joking but genuinely curious. His answer surprised me. "Because when you're doing something you love, you light up," he said. "You look happy, and it makes me happy to see you like that." His words stayed with me. I had never thought about it that way. To me, these hobbies were just ways to pass the time, to relax and unwind. But to him, They were a window into my soul, a way to see me in my most authentic, unfiltered state. That conversation changed things for us. My husband started joining me in my hobbies, not because he wanted to master them, but because he wanted to share those moments with me. We cooked together, painted together, and even tried gardening together. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Sometimes, the most unexpected things can bring you closer to your loved ones. My husband's newfound hobby, watching me do the things I love, taught me the importance of presence, of being truly seen and appreciated. It's not about the activity itself, it's about the connection it creates, the memories it builds. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel.